was just going to tell us about the synchronicities of life through an experience.
Okay,
yes.
great.
I'm trying to live like we were talking about in life coaching, just being present and in the moment, right? So to me, that's the challenge of also just trusting life and the universe and God to bring in the things that I need, the people, the situations. So it's just this morning I was coming to my office to get ready for this podcast, and in this very same office space, back in my son's teen years, we began seeing a counselor that worked out of the same office building. And so it brought back memories when I ended up here in this office space. I remembered that. But anyways, of course, as it would be today in the parking lot, he was getting out of his car and I was getting out of my car. And I was like, "Hi, are you so-and-so?" And he was like, "Yes, I am." And so I said, "Oh, wow, it's just good to see you. I used to come here. I have an office here, but my son used to come see you back in the day." And so we just got to chat, and it was just really sweet. And then he asked about my son, and he vaguely remembered our story and our situation. And he said, "Thank you so much for saying hello. It's so nice to hear that things are going so well for your family." And so I just came to my office with a smile on my face today, just understanding that this beautiful, special little moment, which was just small really, but why these things circle back around and they show up in our life, I don't know. But the fact that I even am in this office, has so many synchronicities about that story also, that I took this risk to start reels on social media, as I've told you guys. And what happened, because I put myself out there, was that a friend of mine said, "Hey, we have an available office space." And I ended up coming to check it out. And that's why I'm even here in this office space in the first place. And it's just this beautiful place that has just the right size room for me to run women's groups. And also this beautiful couple that offered the office space, they've been having is so in sync with my life and my journey into the East and learning all about holistic lifestyle, mind, body, and spirit. And when I walked into the office the first day, there was a big banner that was saying Holistic Chamber of Commerce. And I'm a holistic life coach. And I just there's just too many things that you just can't believe. You can't write this stuff. Sometimes when you're paying attention, it's like you just know you're in the right place and that life is being taken care of down to the finest little details. And the more that I'm opening my eyes to that, probably being in the present moment, I'll suspect, the more that I observe that and I just flow and say yes with all my being, that openness, that pure open space, then I see all of these things that are so beautiful. It's just it's just so sweet.
That's lovely. But it's also the universe telling you that you're on the right path, right? Because, when you're not on the right path, you tend to come up against resistance. Things happen and you're sort of knocked down a little bit. But when you're going on the path that you're supposed to go, anyway, for me, that's how I see it. It's amazing how things fall into place and how easily things come together. So I don't know if anyone else has experienced that.
I'm experiencing a totally opposite situation right now because I think I'm in a huge change right now. Okay. And I have my position as a life coach and another position as a restaurant manager.
Right.
And this AI Breakout podcast, whenever I rewatch it, it's like you three became my counselor or my life coach. And it's so funny. When I'm editing our episodes, there is always an answer of what I'm experiencing at this moment. So I feel like this AI Breakout is, I'm in this present moment, but a message I'm hearing from this podcast, it's helping my future self somehow.
Synchronicity.
It is
beautiful.
It's so crazy. Seriously. Or maybe we just pay more attention to the similar message out there. But whenever we talk about, let's say, my situation with my friend, and Victoria mentioned about the Jay's episode with Michelle Obama. Sometimes you need to leave people behind, and maybe we can scoop them up when they're ready or when we're ready. Those messages out there and syncing with my life experiences.
Well, it's what you pay attention to, right? So it's, they talk about all the time, if you go and buy a red car and a specific brand,
Right.
and you pay attention, and then you'll see that car everywhere you go. It can work the opposite way as well. When my husband was diagnosed with cancer, and his form of cancer, I would see that everywhere I went. And before, I'd never even heard of it or never paid any attention. The trick is to sort of be very careful about the things that you focus on. I had a situation where, Debbie, you talk about lovely experiences and you wonder why they sort of come into your life. My son had to come back from Rhode Island, and we had this lovely day together, and he misses the New Jersey pizza. So he really wanted pizza, and a place that we used to use all the time. And so we went in there, and I had said to him that we're both in the cars, but I'm just going to pay for it, and then I'm going to go, and you stay and pick it up. But we were in that place, and I always go with the intention that I'm going to have really lovely encounters through the day. When I make that intention, it usually, most probably 99% of the time, happens. And so we just had a lovely encounter with the car insurance lady that we had to go and see. And then we're in there, and I was, one of the gentlemen was talking to the other gentleman, and he was saying, she really reminds me of, doesn't she look like Carla's cousin or Carla? And I said, do I remind you of someone? Because I could hear them talking. And he just laughed, and he goes, you wouldn't happen to have a cousin called Carla? And I said, no. Do I look like I would have a cousin called Carla? And then the other gentleman said, I hear London. And I was like, yes. And then he mentioned a place, High Wycombe, that not many people would know about in America, because he happens to have cousins. We started having this back and forth. And it was just a really beautiful exchange. We were laughing, we were joking, he was making our pizza. And as we left, my son said to me, Mum, that was really amazing. That was lovely. And he said, but you always seem to, have these encounters with people. You have this gift. And I thought, oh my gosh, for my son to say that was pretty special for me. And it was a little sort of life lesson for him as well. Like, your intention, you go out and you expect good encounters, you'll get that. Like, there's that famous quote, and forgive me, I don't know who says it, but the most important decision you can make is if you live in a hostile or friendly environment, because it's the one that you choose that is real, right? So if you think everyone's friendly, they're friendly. And I know that's not always the case. You can have the biggest smile on your face and be really having a great day, and someone will piss you right off, right? So they'll do something that will really upset you. But most of the time, I find that if I go in with that intention, or I speak to someone in the customer service, the first thing I always do is I say, hello, how are you doing? And it really throws people off, because they don't expect that. They expect someone just to go
That's
in
right.
and complain about what the issue is. I've been doing this for a while, I would say. But I've learned to go in, ask them how they're doing, because not many people do. And then they'll be surprised. And they'll go, oh, thank you for asking.
I was reading something interesting that is on the line. It works in harmony with this, but the minute we open our eyes in the morning, we're supposed to say, oh, I wonder what wonderful things are going to happen to me today. And your mind actually is built to answer those questions. So anything we put in our mind is what we're going to get back. So if we say, I wonder what's going to suck today, then you just ordered it, a sucky day. You just literally ordered it. And so I think it's so interesting how there's a difference in synchronicity and coincidence. We have coincidences all the time, but it's just that one little piece of the puzzle that fits in that makes the synchronicity feel like it's from a higher power. It feels like God is like winking at you right then, whether it's a lot of butterflies at a funeral and your mother loved butterflies, or whatever the thing is. And I think that we all recognize them if we have an open mind to that, if we believe in that. But the podcast I was watching was actually Mel Robbins, and she was talking to this psychiatrist the other day about this very subject. And they were talking about the difference in coincidence and synchronicity. And one of the things that was cool was like, okay, if you're mowing your yard, because the doctor said he was mowing his lawn, and out of nowhere came a blue balloon and landed in his face. And he could not, think of anything that would make that a synchronicity. It was just a coincidence. There was a birthday party maybe down the street. And Mel said, okay, but if that was the anniversary of your father's death, his favorite color was blue, and you're out mowing the yard and then a blue balloon lands in your face, you're going to think, oh, wow, that was my dad. Like that was, a sign from him saying, good job mowing the yard, or I love you, son, or whatever. And so I find that if we are mindful and if we stay in the present, and I think we've all learned how to do that. I know I have personally so much better than before. Then we do see those little things, and they're just, to me, sweet little kisses on the cheek from heaven, because I see you, I love you, and I know that you might have needed a little lift today, or whatever that is. But it's just, to me, like me walking by one of my children and saying, you know what, I love you and I miss you, and or I need to hear from you, or whatever. So I think that they're amazingly beautiful circumstances that we can find ourselves in sometimes with that.
I love that. Sweet little kisses from heaven.
It sounds like when we are in sync of like our current self and to be present, that's when life happens, it seems like.
And that's when we can hear it. Life happens to us all day, every day. But sometimes, speaking for myself, I can be so stuck on what happened to me 3 days ago that I'm missing life today. I'm missing the beautiful kisses from heaven today, because I'm still, upset about being rear-ended in traffic, or being lost in traffic, or whatever. And I'm trying personally just to let go of all of the junk, because I do think that's one of the ways that we're tricked in this life, is to miss out on the beauty of life. And Debbie, I love it. Love, love, love. You always say, wherever you are, I just try to enjoy the day where I was and the culture. And I envy that. I want that so terribly bad in my life. I want to be able to just let go and say, you know what? If I didn't pack one pair of panties, they sell them everywhere. Like I'm always, what am I forgetting? Or yada, yada. And I think it's beautiful that you've learned to let go and just enjoy. You meander through the island of Hawaii, or whatever it is that you're doing, just like India. You talked about that, and just enjoying the culture. And personally, I have taken a big part of that, and I want that. I want that peace of mind wherever I go. I want that. Being in the moment is so important. And I think I've missed 99% of my life by worrying about tomorrow, or yesterday, or last week, or next month, instead of being in the moment. And I think that if you were to take a survey, at least 50% of the world, more than that, I'm sure, because who really lives in the moment, And it takes me back, and I won't make this story long, but I remember a point in time in my life, one of the point in times in my life when I was just under a huge amount of stress. And I was probably in maybe my late 30s. And so I went to a doctor and I said, I think I have Alzheimer's, like early onset. And he's laughed and he was like, why do you think that? And I said, well, I will be driving down the road and I don't know where I am or where I'm going. I'll have to pull over. And it was like a panic situation, like, where are you going? Where are you headed? Like, where have you been? Who have you been with? What's up? Anyway, that is from stress. That is just one of the
Mm,
things that can happen to you from stress. And your mind gets so tied up and preoccupied in what you're dealing with that I think sometimes we just make it too big. We make it too big of a deal. So I
mm,
think it's a beautiful, beautiful thing when we can laugh in the moment. And I think we're all great at that. We just laugh at ourselves and keep going. And just hearing something beautiful that y'all say, and I know that's a kiss from God saying, listen, baby girl, because you really need to hear that today. Or I
mm,
want you to put that in your toolbox because that's really a tool you need that you've been missing and it's robbed you of your peace. It's robbed you of your joy. So,
Victoria, you said something about, life is happening to you all day, every day. And I think one of the things that shifted me was something that Tony Robbins said, that life is happening for you, not to
for you.
you.
Right,
Right.
right.
So when you sort of, shift your thinking to that. And so I think that goes to what Tadao mentioned earlier. We all have those moments where you have to go through the uncomfortable situation
Mhm,
to
mhm.
get to the other side. And the fact that you are shifting Tadao and you are having these experiences is because you're changing. And don't deny those experiences to yourself because they will get you to the other side.
Mhm, mhm.
And
mm.
it's an important part for you to process. And it makes getting to the other side a lot sweeter as well. It would be lovely if we just went there, but I think if we
Mhm.
just got there, we wouldn't really appreciate it, right? So,
Mhm.
or we wouldn't take advantage of it. Um,
Mm.
and we're all going through it. We all have our good days and our bad days.
Can I
Debbie, you want to
actually
close that? Yeah.
ask Debbie a question?
Mm.
You're in this beautiful moment. Your life is in sync right now, right?
Mm.
And there's a lot of people experiencing the opposite as well. Like,
Mm.
why God is giving us a lot of trouble, a lot of like difficult situations.
Mm.
And have you ever experienced that your life was not in sync? And if so, what did you learn from the experience?
I think I spent a majority of my life not understanding that I was in sync because the things around me were so chaotic and negative that I was in a lot of pain and suffering. And so, why I talk the way that I talk today is, I mean, I tried to sweep some of that stuff under the carpet for as long as I could. I tried to pretend it away. I was one who liked to wear rose-colored glasses and keep smiling and thinking that it would all just go away or fix itself. Or, of course, like I've said, or that my husband would listen to my exact perfect way of living and everything would be okay. Or my kids would follow exactly what I asked them to do and everything would be okay. That isn't how it works. Because the key for my own growth to be in a life right now where I can see the beauty of things comes from walking through all of the challenges and all of the beauty and realizing none of it is me. None of it really is who I am. It's that to discover that we are so much more than what we think we are, that we are divine, that there is a eternal being living inside of this body that we call Debbie. That never changes. That it goes on, but the ups and downs that we go through, and the ego and the mind that attaches itself to the ups and to the downs. I don't have the answer to life. There isn't a like quick, there's so many beautiful teachings and learnings that I just grabbed onto when I was so desperate, so alone, so much in despair that my life was not going well. I just began little by little putting myself out there in all sorts of therapies and groups and retreats and reading everything self-help or spiritual that I could get my hands on. And eventually, like, you get to the other side and you look back over a lifetime, and you then you can actually see a lot of times the beauty of everything.
Yes.
So I'll say this often to people, like, that too was a part of my beautiful story. Alcoholism was a part of my beautiful story. My son living homeless on the streets was a part of my beautiful story. When my son was visiting me and I had to watch him walk out the door into the rain back to his homeless space, it killed me. I couldn't at that moment think of why this is going to be a part of my beautiful story. So it's that the hope is when people like us that have been there in a moment where you feel crushed as a mother, but you know somewhere, somehow you have the strength to let them go, discover what this is that he needed to find out there. It wasn't me. It was like, this life is happening. And kind of like when you're driving home from work and you check out and all of a sudden you realize you're getting off on your off ramp and you're like, whoa, I wasn't even like paying much attention. And how did I end up home? Our body, our life will go on happening. It's that when we jump in with our mind and our thinking, we just distort it all. My answer really is only with a vantage point, only when we get through something and we can turn around and we can look back and see how exactly that piece of the puzzle fit in. You know, it's like when you're up close looking at a piece of the mosaic, but when you have to go really far back and then you go, oh, it's a picture, it's a whole picture. I didn't understand, because when we're really close up and we're in a moment where we feel like we're rejecting our child, it's so painful. But with time and healing and growth, we can see that we had to keep training to run the marathon. Even when we may have twisted our ankle and we may have had rainy days and we may have had, if we feel inspired to keep running, we just keep going. Then when the day we run that marathon and we cross the finish line, we realize that was all for strength building. Or if we realize one day we actually were meant to be a rower, because we ended up there after too many times not being able to run, we ended up swimming, and then we ended up getting in a boat and somebody introduced us to rowing. We look back and we go, oh, see, that's why it was rainy and why my knee didn't work that day. I was supposed to be a rower. Like, it's vantage point that gives us maybe some idea. In the moment, we don't have any clue. Right? So trying to drop our conclusions, like, if we understand, if we don't make conclusions, then life can unfold the way that it is meant to be, perhaps. If I conclude something, I stop the process.
That's perfect.
Perhaps from unfolding.
You just gave me a new perspective on this. The life, the sign the life gives you, the challenges the life gives you. Because I often feel like when there's a lot of like obstacles or like there's a lot of challenges, I feel like maybe I'm on the wrong path. I need to stop doing this, or I need to abandon. I was looking for the closure. I was always looking for the answer. But I think we never on the wrong path. We are just right. We're always on the right path to go through the pain and learn from it.
Absolutely.
So it's not a sign to stop. It's a sign to maybe pause, reflect, learn, and keep going.
Maybe seek
Absolutely.
support or encouragement or
Yeah.
A random question that is in harmony with your question today. So let's say that you feel like all of these obstacles are in your way and you feel like this is not the route that you're supposed to be on. Do you believe, or do any of you believe, if we abandon ship and we say, okay, it's too hard, I'm not going to do that, do we have to learn that? We still have to learn that lesson, right? Somewhere down the line. So we're halfway through the struggle, or three-fourths through the struggle, and we quit. And then we come across another thing that we may or may not want to do. And so we begin that. And then we're halfway or three-fourths of the way through that, and that gets hard and we quit. We're going to repeat those patterns and cycles. I'm asking, are we going to repeat those patterns and cycles till we get it? Because that is kind of my belief. And that is my belief because that has been my life. Like every time I quit, then I'll jump on this train and think, oh, well, this train's going in the same direction. You know, I won't have to be stopped at the traffic or whatever. And then that train derails. And I've got UPS boxes all over me and I can't move. But I think that you still have to learn what it is
That's right.
to get you to where you're supposed to be. I can say, hey, before you get on this train called life, let me tell you what not to do because it's not going to work. It has not worked for those that have gone before you, and it will not work for those coming behind you. So that's just kind of, but I do think we have to learn the lesson at some point.
I think it depends on your intention because when I was a teenager, I often quit something out of fear, like fear of not being perfect, fear of failing, or I was just feeling uncomfortable. If you quit something with that intentions, it goes nowhere. Instead of quitting, I wish I went through all of them, all of those uncomfortable situations. Then that could be opportunity to grow.
Yes.
Yeah, so like it depends on your intention. I left the last few jobs because I couldn't stand it anymore. And actually, I was not actually in sync with the environment and the energy the environment was holding anymore. So I left. But when I left the environment that way and quit my job, something so much better was waiting for me.
I think today you hit it. It's the intention behind it.
Yeah.
Because sometimes when you're working and you're struggling, you don't realize, but that breakthrough is in the next struggle. And it's like, you know, if you try something 20 times, you don't realize it, but the 21st time is the time you're going to get what you need or get that sale, whatever it is. But then you hit it on the head as well with the intention. When you're so miserable and it's your working day and it's every day and it impacts your whole life and how you go home and how you feel, you have to know sometimes the clever thing, the right thing to do is to quit, but not to quit completely, but just to say, okay, this thing is not working for me. I'm going to try the next thing and have that next thing in your head and a plan of action for that. I know a few people who have quit again and again only to sort of come across the same situation because of what you were saying, Victoria, because they don't know how to break the cycle and there was a lesson to learn that they weren't learning. So they encounter the same situation, but, you know, somewhere else, right? It's the same scenario, but it's in a different location. And until they figure out what the lesson is for them to learn, they're not going to break that cycle. But then you have to, and there's a fine line because you have to be smart enough to know that you came to the wrong place in the first place, or where you are right now has served its purpose. There's also that as well. I have learned what I need to learn from this place. It's served its purpose. This is all telling me that I no longer need to be here. or should be here, and I need to find my next thing.
Mm.
And when you don't learn that, that's time out from hell. I mean, like, that is like the time out for kids from hell. Like, you're miserable because you didn't learn it the first time. And you're like, recognize all the patterns. You recognize where you stopped in the last journey. And had you just pushed through to learn that lesson, you could have been all that time into recovery instead of going through the same jump again.
Then I would say that's still a harsh critic inside of us saying that we're doing something wrong and out of turn or out of place or in the wrong timing. I'm trying to grasp the concept of that everything happens exactly as it is. No regrets.
Yeah.
No judgment means everything is whole, complete, and beautiful. For me, sometimes in really painful stories, I knew that much, much later. But the end of the story is always that. I will recognize at some point the beauty of this.
Yes.
Mm.
And
The
I think
beauty of
when
quitting
you-
10 times or
Yeah.
sticking it out. Like there's no difference if someone's suffering and sticking it out or suffering and quitting 10 times. It's not about the quitting or staying. It's about the suffering piece.
The
Like
lesson in
why
it.
are you suffering? What is the suffering? What is the underlying pain? Which is what life coaching is all about. And that's why I really resonate with this way of sitting with people, understanding that present moment living is really powerful, and being able to coach people in the present moment. And even if we have to touch on things of the past to shift mindsets, we're not focusing entire energy on past. It's like here in the present, moving, what's stopping us in the present from being present and from recognizing that we're whole and complete and resourceful. Why are we not believing that in every moment is the bigger question.
Because sometimes it's difficult.
Yeah.
Well,
Yes.
you're in a
we're
process.
not
It's difficult.
enlightened beings, right?
But I think
still
the
stuck.
the more times we learn, this too shall pass. This is
Yeah.
going to be a beautiful experience. Then the more peace we have within. Because we know that we've come across the bridge before, and we don't know how long it's going to be, but we'll get across it again. This too shall pass. Winter does not last forever. But I think that your whole view of everything is supposed to happen, Debbie, when it does, the way it does, and there's no judgment, there's no revisiting that as far as it being a mistake or anything else. I think that's a beautiful.
Sometimes
Can I
I call it
just say-
the flow of life. Yeah.
No, I would rather have my ass bitten by an alligator than to wear these freaking earbuds that are driving me nuts. My mouth is too big and my ears are too tiny. I'm sorry, I had to vent.
And I doubt myself if I can say the word synchronicity.
Oh, let's find
It's
another
a
word.
synchronicity.
Synchronicity.
Synchronicity. So it's like,
Synchronicity.
oh my
And
gosh.
that's our podcast. We're all trying to
And
say the
there you
word.
go. Say this word.
Synchronicity.
Hey, it's Debbie. Join us each week on Tuesdays by clicking the subscribe button. While you're at it, give us a like. We'll see you next week. Thank you for being on this journey, and keep being your most authentic self.